It's time to duel.
When it comes to manga magazines, I'm going to make the assumption that the vast majority of people are really only familiar with Weekly Shonen Jump. And to be fair, for the longest time, I was the same way. For most kids that were born in America, the only magazine that we were fortunate enough to get, and in, varying capacities compared to the original, was Weekly Shonen Jump. I still remember back in the day, from elementary school to middle school to high school, getting those thick books with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu Yu Hakusho and Bleach and Naruto and whatnot. So it wasn't until I got older that I had started realizing that there were other magazines out there. And there's one in particular that gives Weekly Shonen Jump a run for its money. That being said, Weekly Shonen Jump is still definitely the king of shonen. But this magazine in particular is one that back in 1997 to 2002 actually took the top spot in terms of sales. So what is this magazine that I'm talking about? Well, my name is Jordan Fay, aka Axel Ablaze, and in this week's episode of the Axel Ablaze Productions podcast, we're going to be talking about Weekly Shonen Magazine, the magazine that's older than Weekly Shonen Jump, but has become the number 2 in the industry, but not number 2 in our hearts, necessarily. Let's jump into it. So, Weekly Shonen Magazine. For those unaware, it is a magazine that has been running in Japan since 1959. So that means it has been running for 60 years. And it was actually published 9 years before Weekly Shonen Jump started. Weekly Shonen Jump started in 1968. Weekly Shonen Magazine is run by Kodansha, which, for those of us familiar with it in the West, is one of the major publishing companies for some of the manga that we're familiar with. Obviously, the vast majority of us are familiar with Viz Media, which is more often than not partnered with a lot of the Shonen Jump titles, but Kodansha typically is number 2 in that regard. Again, Yen Press being another one of them. But Weekly Shonen Magazine. If we're talking the most notable series from this magazine, it's got to be Hajime no Ippo. Hajime no Ippo is essentially the one piece of Weekly Shonen Magazine, and it's a manga that started out in 1989. That means Hajime no Ippo has been running for 31 years. For pretty much half the time that Weekly Shonen Magazine has been running, they have had Hajime no Ippo in it, and that is insane. Now, other than Hajime no Ippo, there have been several other notable series that have run in the magazine's pages. We've got Great Teacher Onizuka, Love Hina, Rave Master and Fairy Tail, Air Gear, Suzuka, A Town Where You Live in Fuka, Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches, Seven Deadly Sins, Nejima and Yukio Holder, Domestic Girlfriend, and probably one of the more notable recent ones, the Quintessential Quintuplets. Other than that, while kind of researching on this, Weekly Shonen Magazine was also a publisher of some of the early tokusatsu stuff, like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, which, interestingly enough, Go Ranger, the original Super Sentai team, that manga is actually going to be reprinted soon, and you can bet your bippy that I will be going in to grab that as soon as it is available, because there's no way in hell I'm not going to own the Super Sentai official manga. I would be crazy not to. Still waiting on that Kamen Rider stuff to come to the West, including Kamen Rider W stuff, but I digress. So, Weekly Shonen Magazine today. Right now in the magazine, there are 23 current series running in it, with 6 of them from 2020 alone, which is definitely a significant difference compared to Shonen Jump, where approximately 11 of the 19 series in it are all new. Which, that being said, Weekly Shonen Jump is actually going to have 2 new series starting this upcoming week, so that number is going to increase to 13 new series. But I digress. Not all of those are from 2020, so they don't count in the same capacity as the ones from Weekly Shonen Magazine here. So, in terms of the current series included in Weekly Shonen Magazine, in alphabetical order here, we've got Ace of Diamond Act 2, or Dia no Ace, by Yuji Terajima, which premiered in August 2015. Ahiro no Sora by Takashi Hanada from December 2003. Bakemonogatari by Nisio Isin and Oh Great from March 2018. Beast number 6 by Kohei Nagashi, which recently started in September of this year, September 2020. Blue Lock by Mineyuki Kaneshiro and Yusuke Nomura, which started in August 2018. Cuckoo's Fiancé by Miki Yoshikawa, which started in January of 2020. The Story of an One-san Who Wants to Keep a High School Boy, what a title there, by Hideki, which started in April of 2018. Days by Yasuda Tsuyoshi, April 2013. Eden Zero by Hiro Mashima from June 2018. Fire Force by Atsushi Okubo from September 2015. Hajime no Ippo by George Morikawa, like I said earlier, from October 1989. Hitman by Koji Sayo from June 2018. Kangi Banka by Imamura Shogo and Megumi Koji, recently just started, November of 2020 this year. Kanojo mo Kanojo, or Girlfriend and Girlfriend by Hiroyuki, which started in March of 2020. Tricks Dedicated to Witches by Shizumu Watanabe from August of this year, 2020. Orient by Shinobu Otaka from May 2018. Rent a Girlfriend by Reiji Miyajima, July 2017. Setokai Yakuindomo by Tozen Ujie from July 2008. Shangri-La Frontier Trash Game Hunter Challenges God Tier Game by Ryosuke Fuji from July 2020. Smile Down the Runway by Kotaba Inoya from May 2017. Soredemu Ayumu wa Yosetekeru. Oh my gosh. Soredemu Ayumu wa Yosetekeru by Soichiro Yamamoto from March 2019. I apologize if I butcher that. A lot of Japanese there. To Your Eternity by Yoshitoki Oima from November 2016. And Tokyo Revengers by Ken Wakui from March 2017. That was a lot of words right there. Obviously a lot of very notable names right there, especially since a lot of those have currently running anime or anime that's coming out next year. And other than that, if some of you might have noticed from some of the authors, there are a lot of veteran authors and artists currently working in Weekly Shonen Magazine right now, which, in all honesty, is the same can be said for Weekly Shonen Jump right now, considering how many people are back after, how many runs in the magazine with either previously unsuccessful or previously successful series. So, this time going down the authors and artists specifically. In terms of the veterans, we've got Yuji Terajima, this is kind of a cop-out, I will say, because he writes Ace of Diamond, Dia no Ace, and like I said, this is kind of a cop-out because Dia no Ace Act 1 and Act 2, while they are considered separate serializations, it's essentially just a Season 1 and Season 2 of the same series. But I digress. He has been in the magazine for a very long time, and I will get to that later on. Nisio Isin, the author of the author duo for, which one was it here? Bakemonogatari. He was responsible for writing Medaka Box from Shonen Jump, as well as the quote-unquote Gatari series of light novels. Oh Great, the artist of this duo, best known for Tenjo Tenge and Air Gear, which I never realized that those two were by the same person before, but after doing some research here, I definitely see it now. Yusuke Nomura was responsible, did Dolly Kill Kill, Miki Yoshikawa, Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches, Hiro Mashima, I really shouldn't have to explain here, but obviously Rave Master and Fairy Tail, Atsushi Okubo, he's the author of Soul Eater. And interestingly enough, again, while I was researching this, he worked as an assistant with Ace of Diamonds Yuji Terajima at one point. So I thought that was really cool. But then again, when you think about a lot of the experienced authors and artists, they worked as assistants for, previous authors and whatnot, and gained a lot of experience. And some of the most experienced ones worked together at one point. Koji Sayo, and his rom-com universe here, because he's the one responsible for Suzuka and A Town Where You Live and Fuka and now Hitman are all part of the same manga universe, which is crazy. But it wouldn't be the first time people do. I mean, Hiro Mashima has his own technically universe of recurring characters and plots and whatnot, but I digress. Hiroyuki was responsible for Aho Girl, Shinobu Otaka, Magi, The Labyrinth of Magic, which, for the record, was published in Weekly Shonen Sunday, not to be confused with Weekly Shonen Magazine. Soichiro Yamamoto was responsible for Teasing Master Takagi-san and Wakuiken. Also has a currently running series, Shinjuku Swan. So yeah, there are a lot of people that have previously worked in Weekly Shonen Magazine. There are other ones that have also had previous series that have run in the magazine as well, although none of them I would say necessarily as prolific as some of the ones that I've listed here. But regardless, a lot of people come back, same as Weekly Shonen Jump. People like to come back and do manga again and again, which, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, for a lot of these people, it's a career job. If they have for the people that aren't the Ichiro Odas or the George Morikawas out there, where they don't have a series that runs for 20 to 30 some years, they make their living by making multiple hits if they can. So I, for one, because I have read or watched a lot of these previous works by some of these authors and artists, I'm definitely captivated and loving reading their new work. I'm always that way, in all honesty. I would guess the only exception to that rule would be when Beelzebub's creator made Hungry Alice, which just was not a great series in my opinion, but I digress. That is completely off topic, so I won't get into that further. But other noticeable things with Weekly Shonen Magazine, especially compared to Weekly Shonen Jump right now. When you think about it, Weekly Shonen Magazine is more or less the king of sports manga right now. Especially, again, considering the fact that Hajime no Ippo has been running for 31 years in this magazine. And Hajime no Ippo is one of the most prolific sports manga of all time. That being said, I will be completely upfront about this. I myself have never read nor watched Hajime no Ippo before, but it is one that I definitely plan on getting into. Now that being said, when a series has 1,000 plus chapters, that sounds like a daunting wall to overcome. I mean, let's be honest here. That's the argument against reading or watching One Piece, is that it's too long. It'd be insane trying to, get into it now if you haven't gotten into it before. But I mean, in all honesty, no, it's completely doable. One of the podcasts that I love listening to right now, the One Piece Virgin by the guys that do the Rant Cafe, are proof that you can totally read and or watch a series in a respectable amount of time and catch up, as long as you set goals for yourself. I mean, they've been doing the One Piece Virgin podcast for a year or so at this point. And that being said, they started from the very beginning and they're already almost done with the Whole Cake Island arc, which is insane. Like that is an incredible amount of progress. But at the same time, when you consider the fact that they were, reading 25 chapters per week, it's totally doable. Like you're able to get through 100 chapters in a month if you just do 25 chapters in a week. And there are some people out there, myself included, who can literally just speed read manga like a demon. So you can totally, read any kind of manga that you set your mind towards. And for me, that's definitely going to be the thing that I do with Hajime no Ippo, because this is a manga that is history. It is history incarnate. The fact that a boxing manga has lasted as long as it has, so it's absolutely incredible. Definitely, I would say the king of sports right now, and I intend on reading it. Other than that, two of the other, longest running sports manga of the last 2 decades are also in Weekly Shonen Magazine. We've got Ahiro no Sora, the basketball manga, and like I said before, Ace of Diamond. Ahiro no Sora has been running for 17 years, and Ace of Diamond has been running for 14 years. And both of them are still going. I myself am unfamiliar with where Ahiro no Sora is right now in the manga. I believe, I heard at one point, I think it's in the final arc, I believe. That being said, I only watched the anime, which if you haven't watched the anime, I definitely suggest it. I thought it was fantastic. Definitely had some great character moments, and great music and whatnot. It's also one of the few sports series that I know that embraces a character characters and or team that doesn't win all of the time. Or at least in the beginning of the series, not much at all. That's completely against the norm for sports series when you think about it, because most sports series are like you'll have a protagonist or team that just wins every single thing that they do, except for like that one time that rallies the team and makes them, come back better than ever before and never lose again. Like Kuroko no Basket, or, I don't even think in like the original Prince of Tennis, I don't think the main character actually lost at any point in time. No, he lost to, I believe, the tennis captain in an unofficial game, but otherwise he like never lost a single match in like the main series. So like that was something that was definitely refreshing for Ahiro no Sora. Ace of Diamond is one of my favorite manga series, period. I have loved Ace of Diamond so much. It's a baseball series. It's one of those ones where people don't just have, crazy superpowers or whatnot attached to a sports series. Not that, like Ahiro no Sora does. It definitely doesn't by any means. But Ace of Diamond, I've always loved it. I love the main character. I love the main team as a whole, but even like the other teams in the series are all ones that are incredibly interesting, well written, and it makes you feel for them whether they win or lose against each other. And that's something I definitely appreciate. It's left me on too many cliffhangers than I would like, and there's definitely been an argument with the author of how he handles the two main characters, and like how he loves to potentially hate on one and kind of shower love and affection to the others, which it's definitely been a controversy for the longest time that I've been reading this series. But I enjoy it a lot. I think it's fantastic. I'm loving where the manga is currently. So if you're a baseball fan of sports manga or anime, because there is an anime as well, there is a lot of the anime out there, I definitely recommend it. Definitely something that I enjoy and can't recommend it enough. Other than that, interestingly enough, there are currently 2 different soccer manga currently running in Weekly Shonen Magazine. And these two soccer manga could not be further from each other. So you've got Days, which is your traditional soccer manga, where it follows a soccer team as it's going through the nationals and whatnot, trying to be the best in Japan, with two of the main characters, one of them being a soccer prodigy, and one that has never played soccer until his first year in high school, and somehow becomes a regular on the main team. I've really enjoyed Days as well, just because this is one where there's a lot of focus on the players of the main team, and even focus on players from the various other teams, and I think they've been well done. It also has an anime for people that are interested in it. I don't know where the anime left off, but I mean, that being said, the manga is still ongoing, so just keep that in mind if you choose to watch it. Blue Lock, on the other hand, is one of 4 manga that I am going to be talking more extensively about in the future. I will have a dedicated video for this and the 3 other series that I'm talking about or later on in more detail. But for now, Blue Lock has been going on for 2 years, and it is, in the simplest terms, a soccer battle royale manga. And I will leave it at that for right now. But definitely want to say that if you are a fan of sports, if you are a fan of sports manga, sports anime, Weekly Shonen magazine has got it for you. So I would definitely recommend reading these different titles. Other than sports, it's definitely a magazine that you can find a lot of rom-coms in as well. And definitely the person most responsible for that is definitely Koji Sayo, who has been writing 16 years worth of rom-coms in Weekly Shonen magazine. Like I said, starting with Suzuka, then having A Town Where You Live, and then Fuka. The interesting thing here with the Koji Sayo universe is that all of these rom-com series take place in the same manga universe, which for some people is great, for some people it's not so great. One of the things that I always kind of laugh about when reading the comment section of a Koji Sayo manga, one of the ones I will always see, especially in the later series, is how people will complain about how there are spoilers for a previously published manga that he has, and I kind of laugh because it's just like, oh, so you're new around here, so you don't realize that this series takes place after the events of the last series. All right, well, now you know. And I mean, that being said, for those that read like A Town Where You Live, there's not necessarily the same amount of spoilers for like Suzuka as there are in Fuka, but still. And that being said, the Koji Sayo universe extends into the Hitman universe as well, which the title is very misleading upon first hearing it, but it's another one of the manga that I definitely want to talk about at the end, so I will talk about it more then. That being said, I myself have, for the longest time, kind of stopped myself from reading Koji Sayo manga on a weekly basis because he is responsible. He's responsible for so many harem. Like every series that he's written has had some kind of harem in it. Which then, when a series ends, he will have a lewd, not safe for work volume where there are sexual escapades and whatnot. Not that there aren't sexual escapades in the main series, but I digress. But for the people that had other ships other than the main ships, that was something where it was just like, hey, here's a chapter dedicated to that ship, and they're having sex in it. So yeah. But the reason why why I stayed away from reading it on a weekly basis before was the fact that like Koji Sayo was responsible for a lot of like breakups and like explored ships in these different series. Like the main characters for each one, for the most part, are ones where they had relations with various girls in the course of the series. Like they would get with like the main girl that they would eventually end up with, but they would get together, they'd break up, they'd have like a rebound girl, they would maybe get back together with the main girl, break up with them again, have like another relation with another girl, and like so on and so forth. So it got to a point for me where it's just like, I just want one wholesome relationship that lasts. Please stop breaking my heart here. With arguably a town where you live being the one that kind of hurt me the most. Although with Fuka, that one hurt more people, so I will say that. So just keep in mind that like they're great rom-coms. They're absolutely fantastic. I love them. But there's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of stuff going on with harems. There are a lot of situations where you're just kind of sitting there and just like, oh, please stop this from happening. But you got to go through with it, and like they all end well. So I will say that. So that is good. But that is something that I. But other than that, like I said, there are a bunch of other, rom-coms and whatnot in the series as well, especially given that several of them are written by people that are veteran authors and whatnot. I myself, while not reading it right now, I will probably check out Kuku's Fiancé by Miki Yoshikawa. Pretty much just because I had previously read Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches, and I really enjoyed that series. So I have decently high hopes there. Other than that, the other big one, probably the most notable one of 2020, being the fact Rent a Girlfriend. I'm not reading the manga. I will say that. I am watching the anime with my girlfriend, and I'm waiting for the second season. I could jump into the manga if I wanted to, but I don't want to. But Rent a Girlfriend was definitely one of the more notable anime of 2020 for various reasons. But Rent a Girlfriend was definitely popular. Definitely taking I would say like Rent a Girlfriend right now is probably the star rom-com of the magazine since Quintessential Quintuplets ended, which had a great ending, by the way. And for those wondering, the next season of the anime is coming out in 2021, so that is definitely something to look forward to. But yeah, I kind of appreciate the fact that with Weekly Shonen Magazine there are because it's here that like we see that they have more series than Weekly Shonen Jump. Right now, like I said, them having 23 compared to 19, soon to be 21 if nothing gets cut in a Weekly Shonen Jump. But I appreciate the fact that there are multiple series for each genre, compared to like in Weekly Shonen Jump where you don't necessarily get, multiple sports series or multiple rom-coms. Like right now is kind of it's a little different right now, I would say, with Weekly Shonen Jump, because we've got 2 rom-coms in Weekly Shonen Jump, although one of them we never learn its ending. But still, Weekly Shonen Jump currently has no sports series at all in it, so I appreciate Weekly Shonen Magazine for having them, so I will definitely say that. But I appreciate that there's variety, so that if people enjoy a genre, other than, your standard action shonen manga, I appreciate that there's variety here. So, that being said, there are 4 big manga that are definitely not on people's radars right now that I want to talk about. But obviously, if you're not reading or watching them right now, I definitely recommend Ahiru no Sora, Days, Eden Zero. Obviously, I'm a big Hiro Mashima fan. I will have an Eden Zero video as well at some point here. Fire Force, Hajime no Ippo, Orient is alright, by Magi's creator. That one is a little lagging behind with fan translations, but it's still good. But and Renzel Girlfriend. But the 4 series that I want to talk about are Blue Lock, Hitman, Shangri-La Frontier, and Tokyo Revengers. So, like I said before with Blue Lock is a battle royale soccer manga, and you might be wondering yourself, how does that work? So, in Blue Lock, the Japan national soccer team has always done all right in this series, but it's never had a winning team. And the Japanese National Football Association are, they're frustrated by this. At least some people are. Some of them are kind of like, we like money, and we're okay that we're making money, and we don't care if we win. But one of the people from the association decides that they need to step things up. And so they hire an eccentric genius of a man to run what is called Blue Lock, where they're going to take ace strikers from all over Japan and have them fight against each other to create one super striker to lead the Japanese national football team. And this manga is insane. The facial expressions, the action, how it's drawn, all of it is absolutely fantastic. I've talked about character interactions and characters before, and to me, having great characters and character interactions is very important for a manga to be successful, and this is one that does it really well. Obviously, since it's a battle royale manga, people get eliminated along the way, so more often than not, the most popular ones get to stick around, which is great. For the sports shippers out there, you've got ships aplenty. And yes, I know I'm potentially an outlier here as a guy that likes sports series. I don't ship people together like people do in like Kuroko no Basket and stuff like that. But I will be one of the first to admit that there are plenty of boy pairings if you want to ship guys together. So that's your prerogative. They've got your tough boys, they've got your soft boys, they've got your tsundere boys, they've got your just angry boys all around. It's great. And I absolutely love how, like I said, how the series is drawn. One of the elements that comes into the detail work and whatnot multiple times over is the use of puzzle pieces. One of the main character in this series has a lot of revelations and breakthroughs and whatnot, and it's depicted with his head exploding with various puzzle pieces before the puzzle pieces fit back together, and I love seeing that. It's so cool, so well done. The action scenes are fantastic. And you wouldn't necessarily think that a series like this could work, where it's, literally, strikers, so forwards in a soccer team, just all forwards facing off against each other. You wouldn't necessarily think it would work, but it does so well. And I started reading this series a couple months ago, and then I was so pissed at myself because I caught up in 3 days, and I was like, no, I want more now. But it's only been going for 2 years, so I love reading it on a weekly basis. I will say that. And in all honesty, the whole catching up thing is definitely something that is an issue I have with the other series as well, because I just want more content, but I digress. Blue Lock, not enough people are talking about it now, but I definitely think it's going to be the next big sports series. Especially given the fact that Haikyuu is going to be leaving a hole in a lot of people's hearts since the manga's over, and we're in the 4th anime season now, and it'll probably have 2 more anime seasons after this, but I think people are sleeping on Blue Lock right now, and I want more people to read it. So you're hearing it from me here. So read Blue Lock if you aren't already. Hitman by Koji Sayo. So, like I said before, Koji Sayo has his own manga universe, and in Hitman, it's the Kodansha version of Bakuman. That's literally the easiest way to say it. Because Hitman follows a new editor for Weekly Shonen magazine as he tries to make this girl that he met the #1 selling author in the magazine. Which is an interesting difference compared to Bakuman, where it just followed a pair of an author and an artist trying to create a manga turned anime so that the main character could marry his high school sweetheart. So, Hitman is so interesting because it takes those elements of Bakuman but combines them with the rom-com universe of Koji Sayo. With the I'm going to reuse things that I have already done mentality of Hiro Mashima. So it's Bakuman, Hiro Mashima, and Koji Sayo combined into one kind of piece. And it's so interesting to see how he incorporates his characters from the previous series into this new one, while again focusing on the fact that like the editor and author are trying to create a manga that is able to beat out the other manga in the series. Now that being said, it's a Koji Sayo manga, so it's a rom-com. You know that more than likely the author and the main male character and the main female character are going to get together. That's just how it is. And sorry, spoiler alert here. They do get together. I won't say how they get together. I won't say when they get together. But it's one of those inevitabilities with Koji Sayo stuff. So I'll just say that. But I appreciate the fact that just like Bakuman, it delves into the inner workings of a magazine company, and the operations that happen there. Definitely more so than Bakuman, which is absolutely fantastic. I love seeing the inner workings of this stuff as people work in like the weekly magazine, if they're interacting with like the fashion magazine or the sports magazine and like all the different stuff that like work under like the same umbrella company. I love seeing the interaction with like in the current arc they're dealing with anime production, which it's so cool to kind of go more so into the inner workings of that. So it's something that I really appreciate, because as someone that loves manga, as someone that loves anime, I love seeing the process. And I think that compared to Bakuman, it is a little bit more, I would say kind of realistic to like the manga side of thing, or to the manga creation side of things than Bakuman was. And I say that because compared to Bakuman, which Bakuman kind of gave people the misconception that like, the only thing that matters in terms of serialization is where you rank on the table of contents, where you are in the magazine. And while there is no direct correlation between where you are on the table of contents and how close you are to getting axed in a series, I will say, at least in terms of like the Weekly Shonen Jump side of things, more often than not, if you see a series that's towards the back of the magazine, a lot of the time those are the ones that do end up getting canceled after a while, getting the axe. There are kind of exceptions to that rule here and there, but that is kind of what we see more often than not. But in terms of Hitman, they do kind of delve into the fact that more so, sales are really what kind of determine things more often than not. Like they have a big focus on how, certain editors are attached to however many millions of volume sales that they've, had a part in over the years. That's a big thing. How well like the anime production does. Whether or not, and this is the case, right now for Weekly Shonen magazine, how many genres or how many series are in the same genre in the magazine right now? Are we introducing new ones? So, do we have to take one out that's currently running? These are all things that like happen in this manga, and I definitely appreciate it. Just like Blue Lock, this is another one where I want to have a video dedicated to this one. So for now, I can't recommend it enough, especially if you love rom-coms, especially if you love Koji Sayo and don't mind reliving some of the good and bad moments from his previous works. Because like I said, he's pulling a Hiro Mashima and taking the plots of his previous stuff as well as the characters and inserting them into Hitman. So this is definitely the series that, like, at this point is really pulling everybody in, which is good. At least I appreciate it. And again, I can't help but laugh at the people that are like complaining about like, oh, he's spoiling stuff from his own series, and I'm like, oh, you're new here. That's great. You'll see more of the same. So I can't recommend it enough. Read Hitman if you're not already. After that, in terms of the new stuff from 2020, the one that I definitely want to recommend the most right now is Shangri-La Uh Frontier. And this is one that definitely has an interesting name. Shangri-La Uh Frontier, Trash Game Hunter Challenges God Tier Game. That is the English translation compared to the Japanese one, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to flub it like I did with Sorademo Ayumu, so I won't. But Shangri-La Uh Frontier is interesting because it tackles both the best and the worst elements of like video game isekai series in one series. I will say this first. Shangri-La Frontier is not an isekai. They are not being transported to the video game world. Like they're freely going back and forth. They're just regularly playing the game. Although, if I had to make a comparison, it is very similar to Infinite Dendrogram for people that watched that anime this year. I know not necessarily a lot of people did because a lot of isekai and a lot of ones that were similar. And Infinite Dendrogram was alright, but not the greatest. But I digress. I say it's like Infinite Dendrogram because the NPCs in this game have a lot of life. So, what is Shangri-La Frontier about? Well, the main character is what is known as a trash game hunter. He is someone that loves to play video games that are so bad for the fun of it and to beat them, sometimes in just like really crazy and enjoyable ways. He absolutely thrives over the fact that like games will, be super buggy, or they'll have a character that like absolutely sucks and is the reason why you are just like ripping your hair out because they're making the game so frustrating, or like has like laggy controls, or like things that you have to do to try and make up for it. So he's someone that thrives on games that are awful. So what happens when he plays a game that is known as like one of the top tier games in the industry that like everybody loves? And it's really, really cool seeing this series. This is one that it's a manga adaptation of a light novel that's already currently running. But and I myself have not started reading the light novel. If I can find it, I'll definitely try and read it. Because this series is definitely worth it. It's funny to me how many video game isekai series all start out as light novels. I guess that's just how it is. Maybe because it's the best way to describe stuff. I don't know. But that being said, the manga adaptation so far has been phenomenal. And the funniest thing to me is that like like the main character in this game, he's what makes him so memorable is the fact that like he's a shirtless guy with shorts and he's wearing like a dopey bird mask on his head, so he looks really funny. Like he looks like a character from one of his like trash video games, and he's got it in this like super awesome, like everyone is super serious and decked out video game world. So he sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's so cool. But I appreciate the fact that like there are so many games where or so many anime and manga where like they kind of bullshit their way through explanations and whatnot, and it's just like, oh, you automatically acquire this, oh, you automatically do this. And this is a series where like the character is actually like working towards using his or earning skills, using them efficiently and whatnot. And I would definitely say this is one to look out for. It's still very new. I believe I said before that it came out in July of this year. Yeah, it came out in July. So there's not a lot out yet. It's one of those ones that's being fan translated. So definitely keep your eye out for it. If you want to read the stuff that's out there already right now, I definitely recommend it. But yeah, it's definitely one to look out for. The last one on my list, and this is probably the one that has captivated me the most so far, is Tokyo Revengers. So, the best way for me to describe Tokyo Revengers would be to say it's erased, but with high school delinquents. So, what do I mean by that? In Tokyo Revengers, the main character is kind of a washed up 20 something year old who's just kind of living day to day life. He's not really here or there. He's just kind of like, kind of life. He works for like a convenience store, and he's just kind of a generic guy. And one day on the news, he finds out that his crush that he had back in high school, as well as her younger brother, died in an accident caused by the biggest gang in Japan. And he's just really wrecked emotionally by this. And like he's just kind of like wandering through the city and whatnot. He's going to take the subway when he's pushed onto the tracks, and his life kind of flashes before his eyes, and suddenly he's back to when he was a teenager in his delinquent days, and he's thinking to himself that like, oh, like this is my near death experience, and I'm thinking back to some of my glory days or whatnot. And so like he's there with some of his friends, and like this is like a memory where he's just like, wait a minute, like what happened on this day? Like I'm gonna see my cousin or something. And it was like the day that they were beaten up by a bunch of older delinquents and forced to join their kind of little gang in the area. And so he's all beat up and whatnot, and he's like, you know what? If this is a dream or whatever, I'm at least going to see my crush, like one last time. And he goes to see her, and he, like starts to reminisce, and he's just like, oh man, like I can't believe how much I missed her. He goes out, back out when he leaves. He sees this kid getting picked on by some bullies in the park, and in this moment he's just like screw it, I'm gonna go save that kid. And he goes over and he scares away the bullies and whatnot, and he finds out that it's his crush's little brother. And they're both sitting there on the swings, and he's just like, this is all a crazy dream or whatnot anyway. So screw it, I'm gonna tell him. So he tells the brother that like, he has to grow up and he has to protect his older sister, or they're both going to die one day, and he wants him to promise the main character that he's going to do everything in his power, to stop his sister's death. And they decide to shake on it. As soon as that handshake happens, the main character finds himself back in his body in the present as a 20-something-year-old, and he's wondering, was that all just a dream? Like, did that all really happen? And he finds out that like his high school crush is still dead. But then he's visited by her younger brother, who is now living in the present as a detective. The main character at this point has succeeded in saving the younger brother. But, despite his best efforts, his older sister still died. So they decide that the two of them are going to work together by sending the main character back in time so that he can prevent the biggest gang in Japan from getting together and killing off his sister. And what ensues is a time travel just adventure that is, oh my god, it's so good. It's absolutely fantastic. And there are so many moments with great character interactions. There's so much emotional depth to this series, and I can't praise it enough. And I really want, this is the one that, above all else, this is the one that I want to create a video specifically for, because Tokyo Revengers is so amazing. And I am really upset in a way because the series is clearly on its way to end. And it is having one hell of a send-off, that is for sure. But it's so good. If you're someone that is a fan of the Japanese delinquent kind of aesthetic, if you enjoy dramas of life and death, and if you enjoy time travel and stuff like that, this series is so good, and I can't recommend it enough. If there's one series that I want you to read above all others, it's definitely Tokyo Revengers. It is definitely this series. I will warn right now that there is if there's one negative element to it, it's the swastika symbolism that's used in here. But I mean, that being said, the swastika, before it was overtaken by Nazis, was also part of some Asian religions and ideologies, I believe. That's something that is all right, they're dumb teenagers and they're using this for a symbol for their gang kind of thing. So yeah, that's really the only downside to it. Otherwise, this series is absolutely fantastic and I can't recommend it enough. But that being said, that kind of brings us to the end of the discussion of this video. If there's one big positive, although negative, for Weekly Shonen Magazine, is that everything right now you can find in some capacity on the internet to read. So pretty much every series, including the new stuff, which is great to see, is already getting fan translated by people. There are some stuff that you can get through the legal means, through buying the physical volumes and whatnot, or you can get some of the stuff, buy it digitally online as it releases. Not everything, but still. Which it brings me to the negative of, I really wish that Weekly Shonen Magazine had an app in the West similar to what Shonen Jump has, with either Manga Plus or Viz's Shonen Jump app. I mean, come on, Kodansha owns the second most popular weekly shonen magazine. Why can we get an app for it? Can we get some more love in the West? I would love to see it. So that's really my only complaint. But at the very least, everything is readable or viewable in some capacity. So there's some great stuff out there that I definitely recommend. And a lot of this stuff is getting animated this upcoming year, so there's definitely stuff to be looking forward to. Definitely looking forward to Eden Zero by Mashima coming out in the spring. That'll be fun. But that being said, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about, the manga in Weekly Shonen Magazine. What's some of your favorites? Are you guys reading any of the stuff that's currently running in the magazine? Are there any older series that I didn't mention that you guys would recommend reading or having a future video on? These are all things that I would love to hear. So in the YouTube video, if you want to leave your comments or whatnot, I would love to hear it so we can get a discussion going. Other than that, other stuff on the channel and whatnot, on the YouTube channel, for those that didn't see already, I did post my first Weekly Shonen Jump review that I've done in a year, and at this point, I am currently reading every single manga series in Weekly Shonen Jump, so I've got that over there. I plan on hopefully releasing another one this upcoming week. It won't be out right away because I've got some plans coming up on the weekend, but I do plan on having another Weekly Shonen Jump review coming up, so look forward to that, especially after the results of the last My Hero Academia chapter. I definitely have to cover that. Although I thought I saw somewhere that My Hero's on break next week. I could be wrong, but just saying. But yeah, I have a lot of manga on my plate. I do this to myself. I read a lot of manga. But yeah, that is on the main YouTube channel, Axel Blaze Productions. If you are not already on the YouTube channel right now, there will be a link at the end of the video for people that want to check that out as well. So I definitely recommend it. If you haven't watched last week's podcast episode where I talk about Jujutsu Kaisen potentially winning Anime of the Year and sweeping the Crunchyroll Awards, that is also going to be on here. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Otherwise, for now, my name is Jordan, aka Axel Blaze. Thank you guys for listening to another one of my Axel Blaze Productions podcasts. And until next time, I will be drowning myself in more manga. Bye-bye.